Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And we have an amazing episode for you all this week.
Yeah, and I have to say that our guest this week, I am like such a big fan of. I saw her first a few months ago. I forgot when. And then I was immediately like, whoa, this is awesome. Because I hate live music. I don't know if you know that about me. I hate it. I hate going to concerts. But I actually went to see Japanese Breakfast because I wanted to support Michelle, obviously. And I saw, well, you know, our guest. And I was like blown away. So I'm so excited for this episode today. Yeah.
Anyways, Young May, I think it's time to introduce our guest.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Listeners, you know how to read. You already know who the guest is this week. But if you're not in the know, our guest is an incredibly talented musical artist. Listeners, give your ears to Luna Lee.
Hello. What's up?
Yo.
Our second ever Canadian guest.
Let's go.
Maybe.
Let's go.
Is that right? Brian? No.
Let's just roll with it, you know?
Okay.
They don't know. No one's checking.
No one's checking. No.
Our second ever Canadian guest. Now, Luna, how does it feel to have enlightened Youngmi, who famously hates live music?
Feels great. Love to convert people to enjoying a show. I get that though. You know, sometimes it's tough when you have to like stand for hours and it's like the band is coming on late and you're like, what's going on? Yeah, I get that. But I'm glad you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, like I like live music. I love how it feels and sounds. Like I love that part. But it's like all the other shit, like I'm like too old. Like I can't do the standing in line with all the people, you know, and like it's so hard. Like Coachella is my worst nightmare. There's no way. You could not pay me to go to Coachella.
You sure about that?
Yeah, literally.
How much money would it take?
About that? You sure about that? Because I have a price and I'm down. I'm honestly, if I could get a ticket for $100, I'll go.
No, you couldn't even pay me to go. Like I would just not go. I would just be like, I'm sorry.
But Youngmi, that's kind of but when we started the podcast, we told ourselves that was a goal, is to do a live podcast recording at Coachella.
Headline Coachella.
Yeah.
The first time ever.
I think we're headed in that direction, honestly.
Well, I could I don't care about performing. I just like would not go to watch something like of that like magnitude. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just like, oh god.
Yeah. Luna, you mentioned musical artists coming on stage late. Is that intentional? Or are you just like so frazzled?
I
and
try
then
not
just
to do that.
Incidentally go on like okay.
It depends. Some people like to do that because it's like building the suspense, you know, fashionably late. Sometimes there's stuff going on behind the scenes that is very chaotic and you're like frantically getting ready and sometimes you're a little bit late.
Interesting.
Right, getting a peek behind the curtain. Interesting. I feel like if I was a musician, I would intentionally go on late to build the suspense, but then when I go on stage, the audience is underwhelmed.
They all left. Where the hell's Brian?
Right. They're just like, what the fuck? Okay. Word. I guess you're 20 minutes late. That's fine, I guess.
Wow, interesting.
Well, anyways, Luna, we're so excited to, learn more about you and your incredible artistry. But before we ask you how you feel, Youngmi, how are you feeling?
Okay, so here I wanted to talk about this. So I had COVID, Luna, like last year. It's been a while now. It's been like a year and a half, and I have symptoms that are still around. And
that's awful.
What are the symptoms?
Okay, so it's so intense and it's making me really scared. And I didn't really even notice until I talked to my friend whose husband has long COVID. My heart races out of control all the time. And it's like
Oh shit.
really scary feeling. And my friend said that was the the symptom that her husband had after COVID. Like, and he's only been better for like 2 or 3 months, and she's like, this entire time he has like this heart racing thing.
Right.
And he went to a doctor, and they're like, yeah, it's like long COVID. I, to this day, you know, get this thing almost every day where my heart just races uncontrollably, like I'm running, right? And then I feel really tired. And it'll just be like right now, like I'm sitting down and my heart rate is like kind of fast, but sometimes it'll just be like super fast and I'll just be like sitting down. It's terrifying.
Yo.
That's really scary.
I get the same thing.
Really? Yeah, Brian also had COVID.
I didn't know that was a symptom of long COVID. I just thought that my body was just doing its thing and being all out of sorts, but that sucks.
It's a symptom.
It's like it happens like intermittently, right? Just randomly. You'll
out
be
of
standing
nowhere.
And then your heart will flutter.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yo.
Wait, Brian, but mine lasts for a really long time. Like it'll be like that for maybe like 30 minutes.
Oh, that's awful. Are you thinking about seeing a cardiologist and getting like an EKG done?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Should I? It seems like a lot of work. And then they're going to be like, oh, it's long COVID.
Yeah. I don't know. Or maybe call your mom and see what sort of remedies she has.
I don't know.
It's that's so scary. Plus, like, you know, when you're anxious and you're having like a panic attack or whatever, that also is like the same feeling, right? When your heart's racing. Yeah. And like, I feel like having your heart do that can like induce anxiety, which in turn just like makes it worse. Like, I feel like that's so scary.
It's like a reinforcing cycle.
Yeah. So
it's horrible.
When that's happening, a lot of times I'm like, oh, do I have anxiety? Am I having like some sort of anxiety attack? And I'm like, no, I feel fucking fine. I'm chilling. And it's just my heart's like going nuts. Damn. That's scary.
Yeah, that's super scary. Damn, I'm sorry.
You should get it checked out.
Yeah, I should go, huh? Well, I was just like, okay. And I didn't even really like, because I'm so bad at like putting a finger on something if something's wrong, like if I'm sick or something. I didn't even realize until my friend told me that was her, that like her husband was going through it. And I was like, wait a minute, this happens to me like every day. Yeah.
Damn. My, so I learned that if you contract COVID, apparently your brain size decreases by 2%.
What?
After like every year, significantly more rapidly.
No.
Yeah.
That's a lot. 2% is a lot.
It's a lot.
That's scary.
2%'s a lot. But then, yeah. Well, you can take solace in, well, we only use like, what, 10% of our brains? 5 to 10%?
That's true.
So, yeah. So,
well, I'm
hopefully
over here,
that 2%.
I'm over here knocking on wood because I like still haven't gotten COVID, which is crazy. So.
Wow.
I've been lucky.
You're a living legend, Luna.
I'm one of the
few. Yeah. Wow. Wait, that's actually wild to me because you tour and you perform at these
but you know
venues.
what? On tour, we're so cautious. Like, we never take off our masks. We're not allowed to have anyone backstage. We don't do indoor dining. Like, pretty much we're only like in the van, in the hotel room, or backstage, or playing the show. And that's kind of all we do. Because it's like very high stakes. If anyone gets COVID, then the whole operation gets shut down.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is so...
But like, even when you're performing though, you know... I know you hate it, Youngmi, but in live music, people like to yell and saliva gets projectiled out of our mouths.
I've been pretty vocal about like having the audience wear masks at our shows. And most of the time people are quite respectful of that. Like I've sent out like, great. You know, with the ticket link and stuff, it's like, please wear your mask. Cause it's just, you know, we're all taking risks and it's a huge, like, huge thing. If
I feel like that kind of request, you have to be a punctual artist to make that kind of request.
You gotta be
coming
there on time.
Stage late, if you come on stage late and ask everyone to put on their masks, that's pushing it.
Yeah. And I like to be on time.
Damn.
Wait, how are you feeling, Brian?
Well, I'm feeling not funny.
Oh.
That's how I'm feeling. Yeah, I know, and I kind of want to, you know, ask your guys' advice about this, but right now I just feel like I'm kind of in a creatively drained, in a creative rut. You know, I try to write a little bit, and even just like in my free time when I'm trying to think of bits or ideas, nothing's there. Well is dry right now. I'm feeling really creatively uninspired and just overall not very funny. So I don't know if either of you are feeling kind of creatively zapped. What do you guys like to do in those?
I personally, I like to think about like creative input and output and how you need to take in inspiration to be able to produce your own creation. So I like to like try and get inspired by like, well, for me specifically with music, like going to shows, talking to my friends who are artists, listening to a lot of music, listening to like music podcasts, like watching music docs and stuff like that. And usually that will like spark something.
Interesting. Okay. Gotcha. I think it's interesting that you take inspiration from within your own field, because
that is interesting.
I fucking hate watching comedy.
Oh my god, me too. I will never watch a stand-up special. Oh my god.
But yeah, that's great advice. When I think about it, I have a tendency to fall into routines, and maybe those go hand in hand, where lately I feel like I'm kind of in a routine of things and I need to shake things up, and who knows, maybe do something that I usually wouldn't do. Maybe I'll go see a live music show or something.
That will,
Yes?
That's, you should. I won't. But like, this is what I do. I do something similar, but like you said, Brian, I get inspiration from other kind of art. Like I'll go to a museum, or you know what I mean, or I'll like go to a play or something like that, and that will like motivate me or like help me be creative. But I also feel so unfunny, and but I have to say I had this like this like burst of inspiration the other day. A few days ago, I went out with my friends and drank wine, and then the next morning I was really hungover. And when I'm really hungover, I have this funny moment where, and I've heard other comedians say this. Like a lot of other comedians have said when they're hungover, that's when they start writing their best jokes. Like waking up, like I'll wake up hungover and I'll just be like, oh, I feel bad, and then I'm just like, whoa, like in my head, like I'm just like joking with myself, and then I get a lot of like new jokes in that time period.
Okay.
I could literally never say that. When I'm hungover, I cannot accomplish anything. Simply no.
Yeah. I think it's like you're kind of like funny. I think people in general are funnier when they're hungover, you know, because their brains are so like goopy and you're just like trying to survive. You're like, yeah. Like brunch, like hangover brunch with my friends. That's like, I am on, baby. I'm crushing that brunch. I'm like making them laugh. I'm making the server laugh. That's when I shine.
I love that. Well, anyways, you know, I don't know what I'm saying. See, this is just evidence of like how uninspired I'm feeling right now. But Luna, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling a little scattered, to be honest. I like this whole month has been so crazy. I like went to New York and then I went to LA and now I'm back. I just got back and I'm like, I did my laundry and immediately I have my suitcase out to pack for the next tour, which like my tour manager's leaving on Sunday morning with all of our stuff. So I have to like pack everything. And then I leave on Wednesday, I think. So it's just like I am in and out. It's go, go, go. My brain is all over the place, but I kind of like it like that. I like being busy. It's fun.
Nice. Love that. Just a quick question. This is a contentious subject on our podcast. You know, you come back home and you have your suitcase. And when do you unpack your suitcase?
It depends. This time, I didn't even unpack it because I was like, I just need to repack it. So I like took some things out. I did my laundry. But to be honest, it probably is like at least a week before like everything I brought is completely unpacked. I'm really, really bad at it.
Yes, that's how I do it too.
Because it's like the suitcase and I got like my backpack and like whatever other bags, and it's like, you know, it just ends up in the pile in the corner of the room, and it's just, I can't bring myself to do it.
That's how I am. I've had beach bags. You know, like when you go to the beach and you have your like towels and stuff. I've had beach bags in the corner of my room for like months. It will be winter, and I'll be like, "Oh damn, that's my beach bag."
Shit.
But Brian unpacks immediately after getting home. Like it can be 3
That's really
a.m. and he
good.
unpacks.
I could literally
Yeah.
never. I wish I was like that.
No, because everyone I tell that to, they chastise me and say I'm a fucking psycho. So I don't know if you're prepared for that. But you mentioned how you like being busy and you like being scattered. So are you enjoying like this sort of tour nomadic lifestyle?
I am. I think the really nice thing about tour is that, well, first of all, I get to play shows every night, which is one of my favorite things ever. But the nice thing is that it really is all consuming. And so you don't have time to think about anything else. You have to be so present, so in the moment. And so all of my like anxieties about life stuff that I need to worry about go away because I just simply don't have time to think about that. And so it's just like really nice to live in the moment in that way. And it feels like camp, to be honest, because I'm like in the van with all my best friends and we're like traveling and doing all this stuff together, and yeah, it's a good time.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's
any,
really tiring, but it's
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
Do you have any unusual requests on your rider?
No, I feel like our rider's pretty standard. It's like
Okay.
fruit and veggies, chips, granola bars, juice, beer. It's like literally
Damn.
the most standard rider you could ever think of.
So considerate, punctual, and very, very by the book writer.
Yeah.
Considerate of the
I mean,
cast and
I feel
crew.
like I'm not at the point yet where I could make any crazy requests. Like if I did, I'm
Yeah.
sure they just wouldn't fill it.
What?
You got to
But
get
do you
you got
have
to get
any-
to a
like-
certain level first, you know.
But is that like on a mental shelf somewhere where you're like, oh, I'm gonna whip this out once I'm at that level?
One day.
I don't know, but on Japanese Breakfast Rider on the last tour they had puppies. And
Yo,
What?
Yo,
You can
like-
do that?
What?
a couple of
Yeah,
times
anything is possible.
a couple
That's
of
sick.
times they had dogs come out and they got to play with dogs, and that was really cute. I could never do that because I'm allergic, but it was really fun to witness that.
Oh, that's
Wow.
sick. Damn.
That's how you know you've
Let's
made
go.
it, when you can put puppies
Right?
on your rider. I didn't even know that was a...
Fuck.
I want kittens.
Yeah.
Kittens are so cute.
Yo,
Brian, what would you put
amazing.
on your rider? What's like something super outlandish?
I don't
If you ever
fucking
become
know. I mean,
famous.
puppies is a great one. I don't drink, but I'm pretty bougie about my candies and my sodas.
Nice.
So
Oh.
I get pretty funky with that actually. Maybe get like one of those like $6 prebiotic sodas on there with like those Kasugai Japanese gummies, the ones that are individually wrapped, like the peach flavored ones.
Are you going to ask them
Wow.
to
Honestly, that
unwrap
doesn't
all of
sound that
them?
crazy.
No, you'd be like, they have
Yeah.
to be unwrapped.
Yeah, once I get to the headliner level, I'm like, you're gonna have to unwrap that shit. That'll be my demand. Well, anyways, Luna, I'm really excited for us to jump into your career as an incredibly talented musical artist, and just gotta say up top and establish that you're like so incredibly gifted, and it seems like you can play every single musical instrument in existence. I mean, for our listeners who haven't heard your music or have come across your TikTok jams, like your songs include layers of piano, violin, harp, electric guitar, bass, drums, just everything. And what we want to know is, like, what has been your connection to music and your journey to becoming this who you are today?
Well, it started up very early. My mom is a very musical person, and as a very young kid, she would teach. When I was a very young kid, she would teach music classes for toddlers, and so
Okay.
like we always had that kind of like circle time, music time with her, me and my brothers, and she would also play the piano and the guitar around the house. And when I was 5, I asked to take piano lessons. And from there, my mom joined her partner in running a music school when I was a little bit older. And then I just like started taking a bunch of different lessons and just grew up being surrounded by this musical community of students and teachers and like doing the recitals and having that just be like such a huge part of my life. Like every single day after school, it was like, gotta go to my lesson. Sorry, friends, can't hang out.
Whoa.
And so that was just my childhood growing up.
Wait, and
Did you?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Youngmi.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, even as like a small kid, did you really like musical lessons?
Yes, I loved it.
Yeah.
When I was 2, I think, I was obsessed with The Sound of Music and like the musical, and I would watch it all the time, and I would like run around the house singing all the songs like pretty much before I could talk. And I think that was like a first indicator that I was like, okay, she loves music. And then yeah, like my parents never forced me to do any music. I was the one who initiated like, can I take piano lessons? I want to learn how to do this.
Wow.
And
That's
then
really interesting.
when I was 8, they were like, you can add a second instrument if you want, and then I chose the violin.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how do you choose which instruments you want to learn?
Honestly, don't remember why I chose the violin, but
Okay.
I guess I was like, it seems cool. I was 8. And when I was 5, I chose the piano because we had one in the house and I would see my mom playing it all the time. And I would sit there and, you know, play single notes and bang on the piano and stuff. But yeah, and then after that I learned the guitar. I think I started when I was 12. I think I just kind of wanted to branch out from the classical world because I was doing classical piano and violin, and I was like, I want to learn how to like, you know, sing covers and do more like, I guess, what I thought would be cool or whatever.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
So, right. So, like, when you started to play the guitar and sort of branch out away from, you know, classical orchestral music, was your mom, what'd they think of that?
They were into it because the music school that they run, like, has like classical stuff, but they also do like a rock band program, and they have guitar lessons and different kinds of music, so it's not just one thing. So they were happy for me to expand my musical like knowledge and stuff like that.
Damn.
I'm always so interested when I hear people who like have this passion at a young age, because I was like, as a kid, I was like, I just didn't want to do anything. I feel like I feel like this week all I'm talking about is how much I hate everything. I'm like, I hate concerts. I hate doing anything. I'm like a hater. No, but I mean, I love music. I love listening to music. But like, as a kid, I tried to take piano. Like my parents forced me to do it, and I was like, no. Like it was like torture. So I'm always like fascinated when I hear people like you who are like, no, I loved it right away.
Yeah, it's so, what you described is just so pure, and
Yeah.
it just seems like unfiltered, and it makes sense and I'm quite salty about this, where when I was very passionate about tennis, and like I played since I was 5, and I would like beg my parents to drop me off at the tennis club like first thing in the morning, and I would like hit the tennis ball against the wall. But you know, my parents like are quite pragmatic, and so they like weren't all like 100% about it. You know, my dad he's very rational, so he's like, well, if you're not like a prodigious talent in this, like how far can this take you? Like you should focus on your studies. But it sounds like in your experience, like they were really supportive and like cultivated this musical passion that you had.
I feel very lucky to have supportive parents. I feel like, especially like, you know, amongst other Asian creators, like it's a rare thing.
Because it almost is, you know, it's opposite to what at this point is like a quite like tired or like hacky trope of like tiger moms and like forcing your children to practice piano and do everything begrudgingly, you know?
Honestly, I feel really lucky that like I was the one who requested piano to start with. Like I'm glad that it didn't start with my parents like forcing me to do it, because who knows what kind of dynamic that would have created. So I'm glad that like that was the first thing, and that I could grow it from there, knowing that I had chosen to do it.
And it sounds like you always just knew that you wanted to be a musical artist? Because
Yeah.
I read that you went to undergrad at at McGill for a semester, and then you just
I
dropped out after
did.
that.
Yeah, I mean, after high school, I was like, I guess I should, go to university. And I knew that I wanted to do music, but I just didn't really know in what capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been focusing really heavily on violin. And so I auditioned for a few schools with the violin and ended up going to McGill for the classical program there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had this class that was like a lecture series where every week there was like a different speaker. And it was like, these are all the different things that you can do once you graduate. And every week I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that either. It was like just, playing in an orchestra, becoming a music teacher, becoming a music theorist or historian or whatever. And I was like, these aren't really things that I want to do. And then one week the jazz program came in and they did this session where they did a live recording of Use Me by Bill Withers, and the sound engineers were there and they were setting up all the microphones and recording the whole band. And I was like, wait, this is really cool. This is something I'm actually interested in. And it kind of got me thinking maybe I shouldn't be in classical school right now if this is what's interesting me and the other stuff is not. So.
Well, I know that program was classical music. I always find it so interesting where if there's a course where you study to become dot. Do you know what I mean? When it's a creative thing, because it's obviously if you play an instrument, I don't know. For me, I'm don't you want to become a musician? Why would you want to go to school and then be a musical teacher or something? Do you know what I mean? The whole point is that you want to become a musician, right? I don't know.
I mean, there's different specifications you can have. There was a music education program and there was a performance program. I was just in the general music program because I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. So I was just in the kind of overall music vibe. But
can I say something about what Brian was saying about, you were saying that as a kid, you knew right away that you're really into music and you had such a passion and interest in learning instruments. I think that passion is so apparent when I watch you perform. It just seems like this person loves this. And this is they have some sort of, I don't know if how you feel about this, but they have this some sort of inherent thing that I think other people might not have. That's how it comes across to me.
Wow, that's special. Thanks for sharing that.
Yo.
Right?
Wow, that's high praise.
I mean, because it just feels
Can
it feels like you're tapping into something with your music that I think other people maybe they do feel, but it's I don't know, it's just very apparent with you, I think.
I appreciate that so much. It's music is my whole life, so
I gotta say that when I saw Tame Impala live, it seemed like Kevin Parker was kind of phoning it in. He wasn't.
He was phoning
tapped.
it in.
He wasn't tapped, so.
I'm dead.
Not this again.
Just
No.
meandering about and just okay, eventually, all right, next song.
Wait, is Tame Impala the band where it's one guy? It's only one guy, right?
Yeah.
And then what is he
Yeah.
playing on stage?
Well, he has a band. He has a backing
Oh, he has.
band.
Okay, I thought it
Yeah.
was one guy on a MacBook.
Well,
or
he
something.
writes everything and produces and records it all himself, but then for the live
Right.
show,
There's
he's actually a really
Is that-
big inspo for me. I bought
Yeah,
my
is that
first.
also your musical process too?
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Oh,
for the
okay.
most part, I make all my demos by myself, and then for the last record, I brought it to my producer, and we built it out, the two of us in the studio, and just kind of created a studio recording from my demos. So it was the two of us, and then we had to kind of rearrange it for the live show to make it work.
That is such a talent.
Yeah.
The songwriting part is always what really impresses me, because I feel you can be a great singer, obviously, but the songwriting, that's a whole other thing. That's so awesome. Do you think
Hot
you
take
would?
here, young man. I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
I was gonna say the songwriting. That's the last part of any music song that I pay attention to. Lyrics come last for me.
No, but the
I feel
music
like
writing. Yeah. What?
Yeah. I feel like everyone's different with that. It's interesting. Like, so I talked to some of my friends and they're like, the lyrics are the first thing that I hear. And I'm the same way where I'm like, I listen to like the instrumental first and like the melody and the harmony. And then maybe like a couple listens later, I'm like, okay, this is what they're saying in the lyrics. But like that just like didn't come out initially because I was paying attention to the other stuff first.
Right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
What if you picked your songs based on the lyrics? That would be weird. Like, I like this song because of the lyrics. Seems weird.
I think there's a lot of people
like
who
that,
do,
yeah.
though.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I relate to this. It hits,
Yeah.
you know?
I get
I
it.
think in general, a lot of like emo sad boy music is like lyrics first, because the instrumentals are like very minimal, but it just
Oh, that makes sense.
Those lyrics are speaking to my heart and soul.
Yeah.
Luna, I was first introduced to your music over the pandemic through your TikTok jams.
Nice.
And yeah, like, for listeners out there who aren't aware, they're just like short 1-minute clips where you like, which sort of let the viewer like in on your musical production process, and you would play all the instruments, and all these things would go like super viral. And I guess like from that, like, what was that all like for you? Because it seemed like you were just like kind of like most of us, like stuck in the pandemic, and you just wanted to express yourself creatively.
Absolutely. It was so weird. First of all, we thought it was going to be 2 weeks off for the pandemic initially. And I was like, oh, like now I don't have to work for 2 weeks, and like I'll have so much spare time. I'm going to just sit down and make a bunch of music. So that was the initial thought for that. And then, posting them online and having such a great reception was like very, very cool, but also very interesting because, like everyone else, I was just stuck inside my house, not going anywhere. We were on lockdown.
Right.
And like, it was just wild to kind of log in, see all these like numbers and comments and people from all over the world supporting. And then I would just like turn off my phone and be like, oh, I'm still in my house. Nothing is happening in reality, but in the internet world, things are going crazy, which is really wild.
Yeah, what a weird. I mean, obviously everyone went through the pandemic, but like, that was like such a weird time where it was, because I think for everyone, for a lot of people, their internet usage went up, obviously, because there's nothing else to do. And my like social media presence had like a big uptick during the pandemic. And I just remember that feeling too, being like, wow, all this stuff is happening. Just like sitting by myself.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, but I feel like, because after I saw those videos, I, searched you on Spotify and like kind of dived into your catalog and found that like you had been producing music for a while before that. And I feel
it's true.
Right. Like I think your, I guess like ascension or, this moment is a nice inflection point of like how you were sort of like prepared to capitalize on this opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's funny because I get a lot of comments now being like, wow, you're doing so well. I've been following you ever since you posted those jams. And I'm like, that's so great. But also, I was like working towards this like for so much longer. Like I started my first band in 2014 and then like started Lunally in 2017, and I was like playing shows like twice a week in Toronto, like all the time, doing lots of live shows, playing to no one. But I honestly feel very blessed that I had that coming up because I have the perspective now, and I was able to like grow my stage presence and learn how to perform on stage and like really like get to the point where I feel like comfortable with where I'm at and I don't feel like I'm being thrown into it, which is good.
Yeah. So you had like the
totally.
background and the training, as like a musician. And so when TikTok sort of like made your fame rapidly grow, you had the backing to be a musician and a performer, which I think is really important because a lot of people I think get like TikTok fame who are just randomly, right, who are not performers, and then they're like not able to follow through because there's
it's hard else. And there's so there's so many eyes on them, and they do their first show in front of thousands of people, and I can't imagine how much pressure that must be.
I mean, there's a lot of comedians that are like that, right, Brian? Like, I think there's a lot of like YouTuber comedians that gain huge followings, and then they like do a stand-up show because they can sell out like a whole venue because they're so famous, and then it's like crickets.
Oh, no.
It's a hard thing. I mean, I think this is for a lot of online creators where I think you're allowed maybe 5 minutes. Like, audiences will give you 5 minutes because they're like hyped to see you, but then that dissipates really quickly, and after that it's like, okay, what else do you have to bring to the table? And that's where all that hard work and like blood, sweat, and tears, yada yada, comes through. But
honestly, there's nothing more terrifying to me than the prospect of having to get up in front of people and try to make them laugh. Like, that is so scary. I could literally never.
I feel like a lot of musicians have told me that, right? Even like on this podcast, they're like, yeah, I could not imagine telling jokes.
Nope.
Yeah, but I've found that every musician is like weirdly very funny when I go to live shows.
Oh,
it's just the energy or the vibe, like in between songs.
Yeah, the banter.
They're like, yeah, I'm drinking a beer, and it'll be like the funniest thing I've ever heard in that moment.
Wait, do you do banter in between songs a lot?
Sometimes. I feel like I'm still. Well, it depends on the show. Like, I want to keep it kind of tight with the band and just like keep it flowing. But sometimes there's pauses where I have to say stuff, and I like kind of get more nervous about talking in between the songs than I do for like actually playing the show, because I'm like, what am I gonna say? And like sometimes I catch myself like during the song, I'm like playing the song and I'm like thinking about what I'm gonna say in between, and I'm like, just focus and like be in the moment. Why am I doing this?
Yo, that's so funny. You're like thinking of bits to say in that like 1 minute intro.
Yep.
I feel like it's a vibe thing though, because I recently saw Interpol, and they're one of my favorite bands ever, but they kind of have like a dark and moody sort of like aesthetic to them.
Yeah.
And zero banter, like all business. They're like, oh, that was the song Evil. Our next song is this. And everyone's like, that's fucking sick. Like, just all business.
My favorite thing is when there's a band that's like really sad or heavy music, and then in between like they say the funniest thing, because then you get like funny. You're like in the fields, and then you can laugh too. That's the best.
That's fucking great. Yeah, we should start doing that, Youngmi. Like when we do
play
jokes,
music.
Like, musicians will like tell you the inspiration for the joke.
In
like,
between the jokes.
They're like, yeah, so I'm
this
mentally ill, and
this next
joke is about that. Like insane.
That's so weird.
Well,
I'm gonna do that.
Luna, thanks in part to labels like 88 Rising and artists like Japanese Breakfast, Mitski, and more. It sort of feels like we're living in this golden age of so many talented Asian artists in the industry. And, we were wondering, like, especially when you were coming up through the scene, did you ever feel that your talent was written off because of your race?
I definitely felt out of place. And in turn, yes, I think so. Because like the scene that I came up in was like this very specific garage rock scene in Toronto, and like plenty of great people, but like not a whole lot of diversity. Like it was mostly white men playing in rock bands, and like I definitely felt like I would be like just stuck at the beginning of the bill, or like not taken as seriously. And I guess like it's like the intersection of like being Asian and being a woman. Yeah, I just really felt like I had to prove myself because I didn't think that I fit in or like would be taken seriously. So I definitely felt this like extra pressure to be like, I have to be on it. I have to be perfect so I can like prove myself, which is like,
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say like now I feel a lot more like confident in myself, and I'm like, I'm just like going to do my thing, and I don't have to worry about that. Like I don't need to like prove myself to some white guys in a band.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, I was gonna say that's interesting that you brought that up, because I didn't even consider the genre part of it, but that makes so much sense, because the genre of music that you play is I mean, I guess most genres of music are like white guys, right? But like but like that
Wait,
genre to me just feels very much like there's no room for anyone here but us, you know?
Yeah. And like I think I've
Is Mac
definitely
DeMarco from Toronto, or is he from
He's
Montreal?
from Calgary, I think,
Oh, okay.
which is
Sorry.
also in Canada. But what was I gonna say? I can't remember. Never mind.
Oh, the guy,
Sorry.
the guys
It's
that
okay.
are
Cut you off.
Brian cut you off. You were like, "Well, speaking on men in the industry who don't make room for me." Brian's
I
like,
cut you
"Excuse
off.
me,
I was
excuse
like-
me, Luna,
Excuse me. Can I learn a little bit more
Can
about
Mac
DeMarco?
DeMarco? Mac the Brian, that
Fuck
was
me.
so funny."
Oh my god.
Wait.
No, but
Well, since you forgot, I'm gonna say that I was gonna say that. I don't know if you feel. I'm just saying this because you're so successful and you're so brilliant. You know, like when you go in a room, like it reminds me of like doing open mics for stand-up comedy, where I would go in and it would always be like 20 fucking white guys, and they'd be like, "Oh God, here she is, whatever, she's gonna suck," and then it like feels good to go in there and sort of like hold your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
that makes sense. Like from no. Sorry, I'm like, sorry. I don't mean to like hijack this, but I'm kind of curious. Like, is there also an element of style, too? Like, because you mentioned like garage rock and you know an Asian woman. Like, for you to come into the scene like with this classical music background and like introduce these instruments that aren't really like being implemented in this scene.
Okay.
Is there an extra obstacle there too?
Yeah, and that actually reminded me of what I was gonna say. This is what I'm saying. I'm feeling scattered.
Yes.
I'm feeling scattered. I don't remember anything. It's just like chaos. But anyway, yeah. So basically, when I quit McGill, I came back and like there was this huge garage rock moment happening in Toronto, and I was like, okay, well, I feel like I will try and kind of fit into that because, you know, the violin doesn't seem like a cool instrument. Especially like, I don't know, I feel like there's this like stereotype of like the nerdy Asian kid who plays the violin.
Yeah,
And
yep.
I was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
feeling, I guess, like that wasn't cool and that I should like play the guitar instead. So that was definitely an element of like, let me just try and fit into the scene and forget about my classical background for a sec. And then kind of slowly I was like, I want to try to implement the violin. Like, I don't know how to add this in without it feeling like too country or folksy, because that's not the vibe I want. But then one birthday, I asked my grandma to get me a loop pedal for my birthday. She had no idea what that was, but she was like, sure. And then I like plugged my violin into it and I realized that I could like really layer it and make it sound orchestral and lush. And I was like, this is the sound. So like through that, I was able to kind of discover how I wanted to implement the violin. And then from there, I also started learning the harp and like started getting a bit into like learning jazz guitar. And so the genre definitely developed from there, and I would not call my music garage rock at all anymore.
Yeah.
Well-
I love that. That I see so many parallels with comedy too. Don't you, Young Me? Because I mean, like when you're first starting out, there's like a pervasive tonality and style that you see a lot of comics do.
And you have
But
to
then-
sort of squish yourself into that weird group of guys, and then you're like, oh
Right.
wait, I'm doing my own thing.
Right. But ultimately, like the comics who end up, you know, succeeding into quote unquote the next level are the ones who, like, when you first saw them, they were kind of different and weird. But then over time, you're like, oh, this is distinct and unique, and this is valuable because everyone else is. This is so different from the usual shit, like the usual sound, the usual noise. And I feel like that's sort of what the flavor that you like kind of. It sounds like that's sort of like the path you took in the Toronto garage rock scene of just like, well, fuck you guys, I'm gonna do my own shit. And it's gonna be better.
Exactly. You realize that like playing to those strengths and those things that make you different are actually what makes it cool.
That's like so awesome because you are so unique. It's like it's hard to like sort of describe you, and it makes sense that you couldn't fit in that box that those other people easily couldn't fit into. Can I ask you about what you said about the Asian kid nerdy violin
Yeah.
stereotype. So I guess my question was like, I think a lot of times, you know, especially because you're so talented and so good at music, a lot of time, like, I don't know, did you ever get this feeling from people? Like, a lot of times you'll see these like 5-year-old Asian kids and there's like piano geniuses.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
people always say something so fucked up. They're always like, well, their mom probably forced them into playing piano until their fingers bled
Yeah.
or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
did you ever feel that people were putting that sort of stereotype on you at all? Or
You know, like, I guess there was moments like that where, you know, kids will say things in the
Yeah.
schoolyard or whatever. Like, you know, kids just repeat the shitty things that that their parents say and like don't know what it
Right.
means. And so I found like growing up as a kid, I found it a lot harder to feel like I fit in because kids would make those comments. And like obviously now they're older and they know that's not
Yeah.
okay, and like I've surrounded myself with a community who's like really just like so much better than that. But yeah, I think like there was definitely moments of that, little moments like that growing up.
yeah, that sucks. It's so weird because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, here's this like Asian kids, like it's like a stereotype that they're good at musical instruments, but like somehow they turn that into a negative or something. You
I
know what I mean?
know.
It's like,
Yeah,
why are
yeah.
you so good
Yeah.
at piano?
Yeah, or like you're good at math.
Why?
And
Why?
like that,
Totally
yeah.
I totally get that, young me. It's like
Right?
it
weird.
it's almost like this weird new like expectation or like this new birth of a stereotype. So when an Asian like child prodigy does do like Carnegie Hall recital,
Yeah.
in some ways it's like discredited. Like it's like, oh, it's not that impressive because
'Cause they're Asian.
It's like it's
Yeah.
kind of like the new norm. You know?
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
It's I think I forgot who, but we recently had a guest on that said, oh, some people would say to her because she was Asian, oh, you all are so smart. And so when she would get something in her career, people would be like, yeah, because it's because you're Asian, instead of like being like, no, you worked really hard. And it's like taking away your personal hard work that you did, you know, when you're learning instruments and music.
That's so crazy. It's like you're not seeing this person as like a multi-dimensional person, like
Like
this
a real
is
human.
a
Yeah,
real
yeah.
human.
Sad.
Well, speaking
Scary
of, you know, being multidimensional, I want to. This is probably a question we should have asked earlier, but you know, your stage name Luna Lee, is that like? Can you describe like what's the inspiration behind that? And have you always performed with like a stage name?
Yeah, so before Luna Lee, I had this band called Veins, and it was a band, but it was still the same setup where I like wrote all the music and stuff, but I just wanted to kind of hide behind the facade of a band because I wasn't really ready to be like a solo artist.
Yeah,
I was a little
sure.
shy starting out, and then I was like, okay, I want to change this to like a stage name. And I had been using a lot of moon imagery and nature imagery in my music, and I always like felt really connected to the moon. I just felt like it had this like such a magical and feminine power. And so that was an inspiration in the music, and I was like, I really like the name Luna. And then somehow the name Luna Lee like just ended up on my list of potential names. I can't really remember how it got there, but it just kind of like maybe came to me. And then me and my friend / bandmate went around the street and like asked people which name they liked from our list. And people liked Luna Lee, so that kind of just became the name. And I really like having an alter ego / stage name because it helps me like, well, first of all, like separating my personal life from this like more public life is I feel like healthier for me. And also it helped me work on my stage presence and be able to like perform bigger, knowing that it wasn't so vulnerable just being like me bearing myself to the audience, but I could step into this persona who could be more confident and big on stage, and that really helped.
I love that.
Yo, that's sick.
Yeah, because Brian and I talk about how we grapple with, because you know we have a podcast and it's very open. It's like all this information, and it's like really us. and then I think Brian was saying that he like separates in his head by thinking, oh, it's like podcaster Brian, not. What if you had an alter ego Brian?
Except, yeah, that's the thing. Except I don't have a stage name. So when people come up to me and they're like, "I love your podcast," I'm like, "That wasn't me." Like, hi.
Hello.
You know my name. Hello. Yeah, well, maybe we should consider that, Young. Maybe we should come up with alter egos for our podcast.
I think I do.
Yes.
I think there's a part of me that does that because I think it is, I think performing is really hard and it's very vulnerable, So I totally understand like how you're explaining this different name and, like obviously it's different than what you look like in everyday life because you are dressed a certain way and that's kind of like a mask that is like a protective mask or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Luna, in earlier interviews, you've said that your debut album, Duality, was written in a time when you were sort of trying to find your place in the world. And Duality is an ode to your Korean-Canadian heritage and, as mentioned earlier, diverging from your classical orchestral backgrounds. And I guess now, like in the aftermath of Duality's release, would you say that you feel a bit more secure in your place in the world now?
Definitely. I would say even that, like, in the creation of the album, I was figuring out where I belonged. But then kind of in making the album, I carved my own space, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, the very first inklings of the album started up when I was in that garage rock scene, because it took me a long time to create this album, and I was writing it and recording it and redoing things and adding things for just over 4 years. And I had like a big period of growth through that where I like really found my sound and found myself, as one does in their early 20s. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like much more secure in myself, much more confident. And like, that's the nice thing about growing up. It's like every day you just like become more you, which is cool.
Yeah. I like how you put that. Growing up is like not turning into something else. You're just becoming yourself more.
Yeah.
Even more.
Exactly.
Damn. I feel like as I've gotten older, I just become more chaotic and scatterbrained, but maybe that's just the core of who I am then. I just have to embrace that.
I didn't realize, Brian, I have to say in this conversation, I've learned so much about, I didn't know that you went to so many concerts. You're like, when I was watching Interpol, and I'm like, when did Brian go to all these concerts? I'm glad that you know not to invite me, because I'd be like, Brian, no, I'm not gonna go watch Interpol with you. No.
Yo, that's who I am at the core. I was so fucking annoying in high school. Like my entire personality was just scouring music, like really esoteric music blogs, and then just lording that over other people. I'm like, yeah, well, this band is an offshoot of this lead singer's project. Like, bet you didn't know that. And yeah, I was like live or die by
You
Pitchfork.
were that guy?
Ugh,
oh my god.
Cringe. I was 100% that guy.
That's so funny.
And
Wow.
yeah, But in any case,
should we go on to the
we're gonna go into the second half of this podcast. We like to call it the lightning round, but there are no time constraints.
Absolutely no.
Yeah, no time constraints. Honestly, we should probably do what Luna did and go out into the streets and write some new names for this segment and just be like, hey, which of these names do you like the most? Which one speaks to you?
Yeah.
I think we should just call it
It's
questions. This is the
question time.
Yeah.
Question time.
You need a little jingle here. Question time.
Question time. or do what Interpol did. So that was the first half of the podcast, and now we're going into question time. Luna, what is something you're loving right now?
Something I'm loving right now is there's so many things that I love right now, to be honest. I'm just like trying to think of what would be the most
Top
meaningful
of the dome.
thing.
List them. There's
List
no
them
wrong
all?
answers.
Okay.
Yeah, list them all.
I'm loving like really leaning on music lately. I've been like going through some personal stuff, and like it's kind of nice to remember that like music is always there for you. And I don't know, I just feel like deeply connected with music right now, which is great. All different kinds of music. So obviously music, yeah, that's why we're all here. And then another thing I'm loving is just being in the sun. Like I was in LA the last week, and like it makes such a big difference to my mental health.
Yes.
I just don't think I can spend another winter in Toronto because it makes me so depressed, and it's so cold, and it's gray every day, and like I just thrive in the sun. I'm a summer person. And yeah, just getting to like spend time in LA and just like have it be warm and beautiful every day makes me happy. So I'm loving that.
Yeah, I don't know if I can survive another winter period either. I can't.
Let's go to LA.
Let's
go to LA this winter.
To LA.
All right, listeners, you heard it here first. Luna, Youngmi, and I are moving to LA. Luna, you said, who are you listening to these days? Or like, what's it? Name an artist that like people might be surprised that you're like, that's playing in your. If you have an iPod,
oh my god! I wish I had my iPod still. I've been listening to a lot of Joni Mitchell lately.
Nice.
That's one where it's like the lyrics come first.
The lyrics are very good. You're right. I understand.
Yeah. And I think she just is such an amazing writer, and I think I've like, because I focused so much on the jams and everything the last couple of years, I like sort of lost my momentum a little bit with writing poetry, which I used to do a lot, and the poetry that would become my lyrics. And I'm trying to get back into that a little bit more because I always find that I write more interesting stuff when it comes from poems. And so it's nice listening to Joni because her lyrics are so brilliant and beautiful
and poetic.
And it's good inspiration.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And she's Canadian.
Well, Luna.
And she's Canadian. Nice.
Yes.
Conversely, what is something you're hating right now?
I feel like there's so many different ways I could answer this question, but I don't know, the state of the world, I guess.
Give us the least diplomatic response.
Oh, the state of the world. The state of the world is a good one.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. It's just fucked out there right now, and like every day in the news there's just something horrible, and I don't know, it's just hard to deal with. I find myself shutting myself out of that and try not to think about it, but it's like I also want to care.
Right.
And like we just had an election yesterday in Ontario and it did not go well. So
I don't know anything about
depressing.
this. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We just have like Doug Ford as our premier, and he kind of sucks. God. And he got reelected, which is really depressing for everybody because he's just been like cutting funding to everybody who needs it, and so I'm hating that.
All right, we were hating Doug Ford on this
yes.
podcast. Also, I think Canada just announced that they're banning the sale of assault rifles, or they're like going to move forward with those types of measures. So,
wow,
I mean,
that's a good thing. That's a silver lining. Shouts to Canada for.
Yes, I actually didn't hear about that, but we have
getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, we have like obviously much more strict gun laws than the U.S. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you for sharing. Now this is an exciting point in our podcast where listeners, if you want to hear Luna's answer to what she's ashamed of, you're gonna have to subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. Because guaranteed, all of our guests give us the hits. This is the juicy shit that you're gonna want to pay a premium for.
Yeah, people always spill the tea on this portion. No pressure, no pressure, Luna.
No pressure.
About to open
Luna,
up.
What is something you're ashamed of? Well, Luna, thank you so much for just being yourself and being down to clown and being so open and vulnerable with us thus far. But before we let you go, we like to ask our guests this one last question, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
I think I'm proud that like I've been able to navigate this crazy journey and like with my head on my shoulders and like staying firm to my beliefs. There have been like a lot of ups and downs with, obviously we talked about like, you know, not fitting in to the music world, and also just like in the music industry, people will try to like change you or like change your sound and push you into a box. And I feel like I've had a lot of those encounters, but I've stayed very true to like my vision and my art. And I'm really proud that I was able to like release my album and have it be something that felt really authentic, and I was able to like really just stick to that the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope to continue in that way.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm really it's very like moving. I think Brian was saying, yeah, like, you know, it must, I'm gonna just say this, it must be hard to be so, you know, like unique and so talented, but in a way that's like very new and fresh. Because like, you know, you were saying like when you're coming up in music, it's like almost like there is no box here for me, and I have to make my own box. You know what I mean? And like that must be really hard, but you have like done such a tremendous job at doing that and like creating like a box for yourself, because one didn't exist
Thank
before.
you.
So
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
For our listeners out there, where can they find you and your work online?
You can follow me at Lunally 3 times. LUNALI. I have pretty much every social media, so you can check it out. You can see me on tour. I'm going on tour with Charlotte Davison in Canada, and then I have some more tour dates to announce for the fall. And I'm going to Europe in November.
wow.
Yo,
So that's exciting.
sick.
First time.
That's awesome.
Sick.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick. Amazing. And what about you, Youngmi? Where can they find you?
You can find me at YM Mayer or Young Me Mayer on TikTok. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me online at It's Brian Park, and follow our podcast on our socials at Feeling Asian Podcast. We're everywhere.
Woo.
And
Yay.
yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Wait, can I
And
say
we'll see you
something
here next week.
before we leave, Brian? I have
Yeah, of
been
course.
scratching my ass the whole time, and I just realized that, like, in the reflection, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. I've just been. Oh wait, you can't. Good. Okay, good, because the printer is blocking it. I don't know why. I was
Thank
just
God
like,
for the printer.
so you're gonna see a lot
Damn,
of
is
my
that-
arm
is it-
doing
Is
this.
it the long COVID?
It's the long COVID. I don't know why today I was just like, I've just been like squeezing my butt. Like it's not even itchy. It's just kind of fun. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, sorry.
Anyways, I think that's a perfect note for us to leave y'all
Yes.
on. See you here next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.